Sixers fans, how we feeling out there? Hey y'all, my name is Lauren Gordon. Some of you may already know me on social media as Lauren Fan of the Year. Others may have just stumbled upon this podcast, but either way, I want to first thank all of you for tuning in to Season 2, Episode 5 of my very first podcast. I'm just the Sixers fan, the Lauren Fan of the Year story. Now let's continue the story. Y'all, the time is now mid-March in the year 2020. We are in quarantine under stay-at-home orders due to the COVID pandemic. On March 14th, it was reported that Detroit Pistons player Christian Wood tested positive for COVID-19. Y'all, I was scared because that was the last game I attended with my daughter, my sister, my dad, and my niece before the official NBA shutdown. Now, I was still learning about the spread of this virus, and I knew it was airborne. And I thought, oh my goodness, even if it wasn't the normal crowd size that night, there were still a lot of people in the arena, and we were sitting in close proximity. We were all breathing on each other. Now, the thought of COVID-19 was no longer a distant threat. It was beginning to feel like it was hitting home. March 17th was my oldest daughter Kirby's birthday, and I couldn't be with her to celebrate her day, so I just called her on the phone. This sucked, but it was fine, because we all knew that it was important for us to social distance in order to slow down the spread of the virus. That same day, Kevin Durant tested positive, and then the news reported more and more athletes and celebrities testing positive for COVID-19. As these numbers began to climb quickly, y'all, I'm not going to lie, I was scared. I was thinking we're all going to die. Remember in the last episode, I told y'all Sixers owners Josh Harris and David Blitzer received backlash for cutting pay and not offering financial assistance to the hourly employees during the shutdown. Well, this may have just applied to the Harris and Blitzer employees and not necessarily those who worked for Wells Fargo and Aramark. Well, I remember hearing something about Harris and Blitzer, along with Embiid and many others from the organization, stepping up to assist the workers during this difficult time financially. And I checked my archives, y'all, and I found the official statement. It was from March 24th, and it read, "Our commitment has been to do our best to keep all of our employees working through this very difficult situation. As part of an effort to do that, we asked salaried employees to take a temporary 20% pay cut while preserving everyone's full benefits and keeping our 1,500 hourly workers paid throughout the regular season. After listening to our staff and players, it's clear that that was the wrong decision. We have reversed it and will be paying these employees their full salaries. This is an extraordinary time in our world, unlike any most of us have ever lived through before, and ordinary business decisions are not enough to meet the moment. To our staff and fans, I apologize for getting this wrong." Wow! Y'all reading this now, I totally respect Josh Harris admitting he was wrong. So whether it was public pressure or a come to Jesus moment, at the end of the day, he did the right thing. And while digging around, I found some more information on Embiid's contribution. Embiid donated $500,000 to the arena staff. Y'all, this is great. Even Michael Rubin, the owner and brains behind Fanatics, the sports gear and memorabilia company, he donated clothing to healthcare workers. It was imperative that we all did our part to slow down the spread of this deadly virus. At the time, we didn't have vaccines, and most areas did not have enough ventilators. Now, we didn't want to exhaust and overwhelm our hospital staff and essential workers, so it was critical that everyone stayed at least 6 feet apart, wore their masks, and washed and sanitized their hands, all in an effort to slow down this virus. Now, y'all, it didn't take long for fanatics to have Sixers-themed masks and gator scarves on their website. And you know, I brought them all, every single design. And I thought, listen, if I'm going to have to wear a mask, I'm most certainly going to rep my team. Remember I told y'all that I was in the process of buying a house, right? Well, I had no idea how this shutdown would affect everything. I still needed to do my inspections, which was difficult, but my realtor, Rochelle, reassured me that she was working on getting me an inspector and everything would work out just fine. Now, since I was in full quarantine mode, I made good use of my time by slowly packing up my little apartment at my own pace. My youngest daughter, Kendall, was still in high school, and I felt bad for her because it was her senior year. During the week, Kendall spent time with her father, but on the weekend, Kendall spent time with me at my apartment. And Kendall and I, we'd watch movies, play board games, create TikTok videos, just to pass the time. I would also use the quarantine time to just rest because normally my life was always go, go, go. Now I was forced to slow down. I napped and meditated a lot. I had also tapped into my other creative talents. I painted, I cooked, I danced, I sang, and I listened to my favorite music. And at times, Kendall and I would just make up silly little games just to keep us entertained. I joined Zoom calls to stay connected with my family and friends. I admit, at first it felt weird because I am naturally a social person who loves to hug everyone. So having to connect with my loved ones without the physical element was an adjustment. At the same time, I was thankful for the technology that allowed us to stay connected. And I found that I was on social media a lot more, just to feel a sense of that human interaction. And I missed attending the Sixers games, seeing all of my friends. So on what would be game day, I would post on Facebook, I would be at the Wells Fargo Center right now doing my normal pregame routine. To make me happy, can y'all post a picture of yourselves wearing Sixers gear? Y'all, Sixers fans pulled all the way through. My timeline was flooded with photos of people wearing their Sixers best. And that was enough to make me happy. Because y'all, going through this pandemic, it was important for me to connect to things that brought me happiness and soothed my soul. It has always been the Sixers for me. But now that the league was on suspension, I now had to find creative ways to tap into that wonderful feeling again. I tried to avoid watching the news because it was too depressing. It's always important for me to protect my mental health. Even without watching the news, I was still aware of the lack of ventilators, the toll it took on our medical staff, and it was during that time that I really began to value our essential workers. I have such gratitude for those who risk their lives for the well-being of others. Our essential workers are true heroes. I heard in the news of people testing positive and dying from this virus, but it really didn't begin to hit home until I got news of actual family members who had died because of the virus. And it seemed like every day we heard of another well-known person who tested positive or who had died. And each day I saw the death toll numbers continuing to rise, and it all felt so bizarre. I spent a lot of time on social media. I joined every Sixers group I could find because typically you tend to be drawn to like-minded people, right? And what I found was I liked some Sixers groups better than others. And y'all, true story here. I was actually kicked out of a Sixers group. Now get this, because the group owner told me that I posted too much. And I thought, go figure. I couldn't be mad because as the owner of the group, he can add or remove whoever he wants. I always thought in the back of my mind that it was his ego that wouldn't allow a female to have more insight and Sixers knowledge than him. I told y'all, I've been dealing with this kind of stuff, especially from the boys, since I was in middle school. Now, on the flip side, I have been asked to be an admin to other Sixers groups, but it becomes like a part-time job. You got to keep the group interesting. You got to consistently make engaging posts. You got to clean up the posts that go against the group rules and standards. And of course, you got to weed out the weirdos. So I just enjoy sharing my random Sixers thoughts across many different Sixers groups. And I always keep my Sixers posts positive. I like to keep things upbeat and light. I don't like bashing or knocking a particular player or the team. And just like any other Sixers fan, I like talking about the players, the coaches, the team overall, my thoughts on the previous games we've played, my predictions for the upcoming game, and, my thoughts for the end of the season. And I always enjoy sharing a throwback photo or memory from past seasons. And I love doing my Sixers birthday posts. Y'all, I love celebrating birthdays. It don't even have to be my birthday. And I know I get this from my family because we make a big deal out of celebrating each other's birthdays, right? So I carried this over to the Sixers. So after a while, I began to know when it was the player's birthday. It could be past players, from the current roster. Same with some of the coaches, right? And what I would do is I would make this special birthday post on social media. Sixers fans, it's so-and-so's birthday. And y'all, more times than not, I actually had a photo with the player and I would include that in the birthday post and I would tag them. And y'all, the players have actually acknowledged my birthday post. I have gotten likes. I've gotten thank you in the comment section. My birthday posts have been shared on their social media. It's been retweeted. And even though it's their birthday, I feel like I got the gift of just knowing that they appreciated it. I admit I love social media. And over the years, I have met many, and I'm doing air quotes here, friends, and have formed friendship with people I have never, ever met. Social media brought a lot of us Sixers fans together. Now, I have met a lot of people in person whom I initially met through social media, and so far, I have not been disappointed. Majority of the times, the person is exactly how I imagined them to be. Even the voice that I have in my head when I'm reading their posts is pretty spot on to their actual voice. Social media is amazing. And for the most part, I've had very favorable experiences and encounters. Now, I have had a few weirdos who have crossed the line on social media. Yep, wait till I get to that topic in a future episode where I can discuss in more detail. As days passed, it was getting harder and harder to stay cooped up in the house, especially with the spring weather bringing beautiful, warmer temperatures. So just to get out the house, I would actually drive to the Wells Fargo Center to see the arena, because this connected me to my old normal. See, I was going to the games 2 to 3 times a week, and it became such a huge part of my life, and that was now gone. And I remember as I was driving down the Blue Route, there were hardly any cars on the road. When I finally reached the Wells Fargo Center, it looked abandoned. And I thought, geez, are we ever going to get back to normal? By April, the big thing was social distancing. It was important for everyone to stay at least 6 feet apart so as not to transmit the COVID-19 virus. We all had to do our part if we wanted to slow down the spread and lift the stay-at-home order. In addition to connecting via Zoom calls, my family and I would do drive-bys. I'd call my mom and tell her to come to the door as I parked at the end of her driveway, waving and blowing kisses to her from my car. I'd roll down my window and say, "Mom, I just needed to lay eyes on you." And I would also do this with other family members, and they would do the same with me. Karen and Shawnette are my first cousins, and we're very close. We're like sisters. And we would meet up in the Plymouth Meeting Mall parking lot just to talk to each other from our cars. Now, being on social media is nice, but for me, just seeing the faces of people that I love made me realize what's really important in life. On April 26th, I was obsessed with the Last Dance documentary that was based on Michael Jordan's journey with the Chicago Bulls. This was exactly what I needed to fill my soul. It was basketball related, and it gave me a little nostalgia, reliving Jordan's glory days and legendary career. Now, y'all, on May 1st, it was reported that Mark McNamara had passed away. Now, y'all remember, Mark McNamara was a part of our Sixers championship team. And I remember this made me sad because it felt like every day there was some kind of report of someone dying. And I was thinking 2020 was not off to a good start. All you heard was sickness and death and sadness and grief. And I was thinking, dear God, we're only in the second quarter of the year. So y'all, on top of dealing with the stress of the pandemic, I was also dealing with the trauma of hearing the news reports of innocent, unarmed Black people being murdered. The stress of the pandemic and the rise of racism and hatred was a lot for me to handle, especially since I am typically a happy and positive person. There was so much divisiveness in our country at the time, and I saw a lot of ugliness, hatred, and evil on social media pages that at one time had given me so much happiness. And there were a lot of emotions running through my body. Of course, the first one was anger. There was fear, there was hopelessness, there was helplessness, and I began to not trust people. Now, I'm all for people having a difference of opinions, but I have to draw the line at racism. And there were people who I thought were my friends who were okay with white supremacy. So I began to question my friendships, my relationships, and on top of the pandemic, I became very sad and depressed. And I had every right to be angry with the injustice that I saw happening to my people. But I also didn't want to live my life angry, fearful, or becoming a person I didn't want to be. I knew for the most part that people are good, and I didn't want to live in a fear-based society where I'm being fed these things that would continue to divide us and perpetuate the cycle of hate. Even though I was aware that this stuff was happening, I wanted to just block it out. I had to focus on gratitude and blessings in that present moment. I had my health, my strength, love, family, food, a well-paying job, warmth in the winter, cool in the summer, and I was like, yep, God got me. Regardless of what is going on externally in the world, I'm good. I am blessed. And at the end of May, I received another huge blessing. I went to settlement and moved into my very own house. Y'all, I did it. I bought my own house, and I did it all by myself. It was definitely a proud moment. I couldn't wait to clean and unpack everything and kind of create my own world. And you know what? It was nice to know that during these tumultuous times, my daughter lived right across the street. Corey was just a few doors away, and now we could really look out for each other. The same week that I was moving into my new home, the 76ers released an official statement that read, "Following today's announcement by Governor Murphy, the Philadelphia 76ers training complex in Camden, New Jersey will begin a phased reopening tomorrow for voluntary individual workouts. Players and essential staff will adhere to strict safeguards in accordance with NBA guidelines." Y'all, this was great news, and it couldn't have come at a better time. This was a sign that we were beginning to take steps forward to reopen the world and get back to normal. The arenas across the league were still closed to the fans, and even though I no longer attended the games in person, the organization made it so that I was still involved in fan experiences and activities, but now it was virtual. This virtual thing was new, but it was the next best thing to actually being there in person. During the shutdown, I participated in 2 different Sixers Town Hall Zoom calls with NBA play-by-play announcer Mark Zumoff. During one town hall, he interviewed General Manager Elton Brand, and another town hall, he interviewed my favorite, Allen Iverson. I also participated in a televised Zoom interview with Mark Farzetta on NBC Sports Philadelphia with other Sixers fans. We discussed how we were coping with the pandemic and being in isolation. And of course, we jumped right back into talking about our Sixers and how we looked forward to seeing our guys playing on the court again. Y'all, I even appeared in an NBC Sports Philadelphia Sixers fan commercial wearing my Sixers mask with my dog Murphy. Now, Murphy and I appeared briefly in this commercial, but it played throughout the day. And it's always fun when my family and friends recognize me on television because they'll tag me in posts or they'll send me screenshots and videos, and I love that. My monthly Sixers season ticket payments were suspended after the shutdown in March. But the last week of May, I got a notice that my Sixers membership payment will resume. I knew then that that was a sign that things would be getting back to normal. Then in June, Kendall was my last child to graduate high school, and I felt bad for her in the class of 2020 because they missed out on their senior prom and all the other fun events that everyone looks forward to their senior year of high school. They didn't have the traditional pomp and circumstance graduation ceremony, but I told Kendall she was now a part of a very historic class. In July, the NBA announced they had created the Bubble in Orlando, Florida on Walt Disney World property, and it was a very controlled environment where players and staff could social distance and resume the 2019-2020 NBA season. To my understanding, the players and the staff would be tested for COVID multiple times throughout the day, contact tracing procedures would also be in place, and there would be no fans in attendance for any of the games. Now, y'all, as a fan, I wasn't disappointed, and I would say for the most part, we all understood that this was what we needed to do in an effort to slow down the spread of the virus. I was like, yes, the NBA is slowly coming back, and I'm going to see my guys hoop again. And y'all, I began to feel hopeful. The COVID-19 virus would forever change our world, and moving forward, we would learn to accept a new reality. Thanks for tuning in, y'all. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share. And be sure to tune in next week as we continue the story.